Welcome in, everybody. Episode 54 of the Slumpbuster podcast. We're going to break to the combat hour on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Slumpbuster. Quiet on the set, make sure my mic is on. Aris, Dre, and Juju, dog, diving towards the pylon. Go for 2, so damn rude, recognize authority. Spitting tips for fantasy, no way you're outscoring me. Bold predictions with conviction every single day. Sports addiction, no restriction, kicking game like Pele. He's the greatest, what's the basis? Pick an athlete, let's debate this game. Outrageous, trading places, sudden death, take 10 paces. Turn and shoot, boys the truth, Mamba mentality. Future greats take their place, dreams become reality. Low and outside, knocked it out the park. Your boy discovered fire like a rock with a spark. Refs acting like Neanderthals. Phantom flags, nothing calls. Heartbreak losses, tragic falls. Every week discuss it all. Settle in, listen up. Free your time like Andrew Luck. Show's about to start. I suggest you buckle up.
Combat hour.
Combat hour.
Well,
how's it going, guys?
Good. How's it going? So, as you can tell, we do not have Juju on, but instead, I'm joined by Aris Blakeney, and we do have a guest, a very special guest from the Combat Hour, Brady Wolfe. Brady, how are you doing?
I'm living. The kids are keeping me busy today, but it's nice out here, so I'm enjoying the weather and talking to a lot of fighters, and it's going really well. I'm really looking forward to this week's card and talking to you guys, so, yeah.
Yeah, and Brady, I know that you're on the East Coast. Where exactly are you located at?
I'm in London, Ontario. It's about 2 hours away from Toronto. I don't know if it's small, but it's about 400,000 people. But we got Adrenaline here, which is a nice MMA club. I don't know if you remember Sam Stout and Mark Komnick from the UFC, but they have a little gym here. So still have some love for MMA here and some good little boxing clubs. So
that's awesome. And so do you go in and train yourself, or are you more of just, hey, I'm just going to watch and analyze?
No, I've done some training before. Got a little beat up here and there. You always got to have fun. If you're going to watch it, I think you should try it at least a couple times. It's really good training, even for cardio, that kind of thing. Love throwing the sledgehammer on the tires. So I like doing it and staying active, absolutely.
So I guess I'll ask you, what is your favorite aspect of fighting? Do you like the ground? Do you like stand-up, kicking, just boxing?
I did some wrestling in high school, so I do like the whole wrestling aspect. I know some people who don't understand a lot get bored sometimes when they're on the ground, but when you're rolling, you don't realize how hard that is. When a guy is on top of you and you're trying to get up, that is the hardest position you'll ever be put in. So I actually really enjoyed a good grappling match. I think it's very unrespected in that case because people just don't know how hard it is. A lot of people are like, just get him up. Well, it's harder to get up than to keep them. So it's just hard. I do like some good old striking too, though. So it's nice to see some people put some things together. I really enjoy styles like Carlos Condit. He really got me into the striking. I love the kicks and everything. So yeah, it's just the whole game I love. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So Aris and I, we actually wrestled together in high school. So I guess I'll ask you, the same question, Aris. What is your favorite? Do you like watching just stand up and bang fights, or do you prefer a good grappling match?
I mean, everybody likes the stand up and bang because that's where all the action is. But I kind of like how I like my football. I kind of like all the what the hell's that word? I can't say it right now. I like all the little details that go into a fight.
Intricacies.
There you go. I couldn't say that damn word. But I love all like the little nuances, like wrist fighting to get that right position for, an arm bar or something like that. Like I like the little stuff, just like in football. Like I love the line play because it's the little stuff that helps you win the battles for, the big stuff. And kind of like Brady was saying, nobody really likes the ground and pound because it's not sexy. You're not going to see a lot of blood and stuff gushing when, somebody's wrestling around like Khabib does. So I do like that, and he's right. Crap is hard as hell. I remember coming into my first workout coming from football. I was like, oh, yeah, we're a super conditioned team. This is going to be easy for me. And then 30 minutes into the workout, I'm like, I'm done. I quit. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand. And I think that's how you really know your guys that know the sport is they can see those little intricate details and like, oh man, that little hand
you gotta
placement.
respect it.
Yeah, exactly. It totally makes a difference. And Brady, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was telling Aris and Juju the other day that the fighting gyms just opened back up here, and we're only allowed to be at 25% capacity or so. So all the guys that are really going into the gym are your black belts and brown belts, jiu-jitsu, killer strikers. And man, it is just another level to roll with guys that are that good. Like, I think of myself as like, oh, I'm all right. And then, going up against a few like Gracie black belts and stuff, it's not exactly the same, as where I thought I was.
And can I throw some in there? No one really knows how much it hurts when someone, like, people don't know the damage when you're thrown on your back. Like, if you're actually slammed or taken down, that doesn't feel fun. Like, people just think, oh, okay, he took him down. Some of those things actually kill, like, take the air out of you. So I just think the whole ground game and wrestling is my favorite part of MMA.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, there's so much work that you have to put in. Like, if somebody gets side control on you, the amount of energy it takes without even getting hit in the face just to shrimp and get back to position, right? To get back to your regular guard is, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of work out of you. Just real quick then, before we hop into the rest of the show, how did you start the Combat Hour, and what are some of the things that listeners can look forward to when listening to your show?
So me and Marshall started off about 2 years ago. We started off doing a podcast. We could look back and you'll see, like, it's not the best. We were getting into it. We've came a long way. But we used to work at McDonald's together, and we constantly talked about MMA, UFC back in the day. And then we finally were like, we got to do a podcast. Probably for 4 years. And then one day I'm like, you know what, you're coming over here. I think it was after a John Jones card, or John Jones controversy. We're like, okay, this is perfect. We could do this. And it did actually pretty well for the first time. We got a lot of support, and people said it was good and showed us what we could improve on. A year later, we were still just doing podcasts. I think we had an interview with Peter McNeely and Caution Abraham. The Caution is a boxer. Peter fought Mike Tyson. We didn't really get into the interviews too much. And then COVID actually helped out quite a bit. I'm going to say that because it kind of separated me and Marshall into a new realm where I kind of did my own thing. He did his thing, and then we did things together because he does more of the boxing. I do more of the MMA, but then we kind of bring it together because we know about both too. So now that COVID ended, or is going on, like, we were getting more interviews. We were doing this new series called What If. We were just doing a whole bunch of things that were opening our channel to more options. So I'm actually going to say that this has helped us a lot through COVID because we've expanded into a whole new audience and different things. So I'm really enjoying it, and it's a fun time, and I love the sports and just everything combat I'm into. So I get to do what I love and talk to fighters now. It's a dream come true.
Yeah, I agree. COVID, interestingly, has been great for us as well, where, you get all of this time now to be able to sort of watch, your favorite sport. UFC is really the only thing that's on right now. Time to be able to talk about it. So this is a perfect segue into, being able to talk about it. So the UFC, like I said, really is the only sport that's on right now. There's not a whole lot of like hockey or basketball or baseball or anything like that. So I've got to ask, there was the Jessica I and Cynthia Calvillo card this weekend. Did you get to watch it, Brady?
You know what? I'm not going to lie. I wasn't really like a lot of people, I didn't find the card too appealing. I mean, there's a lot of up-and-comers on the card, and you got to respect that. I really should have been watching it a lot more. I did catch some of it. I was busy at the time. I caught and there was a lot of stoppages. I can't really think of too many of the names at the moment that's on my head, but I did see the co-main and the main event. Marvin Vettori, I think I pronounced that right. I honestly think he's the dark horse of the middleweight division. He had a split decision with Israel Adesanya in, I think, Israel's second fight, and I truly believe he beat him. I do think he's the dark horse of the division, so I did tune into that fight because I'm a big fan of him, and I think he's going to be a top 5 guy in the next coming years. And he did a rear naked choke over Carl Robertson, who came in 5 pounds overweight. So the main event, I don't think, was main event worthy. I don't think we wanted to see 5 rounds of that. I mean, it's not that Cynthia or Jessica are bad fighters. They are good fighters. It's just that we expect a little bit more. I would have put Marvin even as the main event over them. I didn't mind the fight. There was no outcome that even a main event should have had, like, you know what I mean? There was no title implications, really. There wasn't too much going on that should have been a main event. So I just wasn't that excited. It was a decent fight. That's all I can say about that card.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting point about the fact that nobody was a really, really big draw on this card. And so, Aris, I'll ask you, with the UFC being the only game in town, I definitely think they've capitalized on it. We've had cards even on a Wednesday night, and, we've had back-to-back weekends of UFC fights. So, Aris, do you think the UFC is almost oversaturating the market, or do you think that they're capitalizing perfectly on this?
I think they'll capitalize on maybe some of those fringe fans that weren't really sure just yet with the sport. They're already diehard fans are loving this. The people who are just like, I'm not really sure, they're probably getting into this more. But I feel like once the major sports come back, football, hockey, and basketball, at this point, I don't think baseball is coming back. I think they will, again, take a back seat. Also, the thing that still hurts them is you have to pay to watch some of these bigger fights, which is, I feel like, is always going to hurt the sport. With some of those like borderline fans, like they'll watch the prelims, but they'll never shell out the 60, 70, $80 or whatever it is for that actual fight. So unfortunately, they're still at a hindrance, but this is just giving maybe those fans that are on the border a little bit more exposure to them.
Yeah, and Brady, so what are your thoughts? Do you think this is the right amount of MMA? I know that you're a big fan, obviously. What do you think about the balance that the UFC has struck right now?
I'm always happy with the more MMA. There's a lot of good fighters. I mean, I don't want to see, like with this instance of this week's card that just passed, you could have got a good main event from a card 2 weeks from now. You could have put one of those fights in the main event. Like, I don't think they're stacking them properly, is my opinion. One card will be stacked to the limb, where one card will be mediocre, where they could just kind of split them up. I think if they did that, it'd be a lot better.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's nice that there's so much of it, especially if you are a fan, but then it almost waters it down. I feel like when there's fewer events, but every single one is good, as a fan, it's like a special moment that I look forward to.
And let's be honest, like if they had a big name on the card, more people would see those prospects underneath, and then they'd go, oh, I want to watch that guy next time. A lot of people were hating on the main event of this card. A lot of people didn't watch it just because of the main event. You have to have a good main event to get people to watch those people underneath.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, the Glover Teixeira fight a few weeks ago, that one was like a decent main event, so a lot of people tuned in for it. Whereas, I still think nothing against female fighters, right? Jessica Ai is fantastic in herself, and obviously Calvillo is, fantastic as well. It just, they don't tend to draw as big a crowd unless it's like the Amanda Nunez's, the Joanna Jędrzejczyks, and Lily Johns. You also mentioned something really interesting about Robertson missing weight. And so we had actually, I want to say 3 fighters that missed weight. So Brady, do you think this is all just due to COVID, not being able to get into the gym? Or do you think this is just one of those weird cards where people miss weight?
I honestly believe you should be able to make weight. If you're in that weight class, those people know, all fighters know that you could be called in for a fight at any time. You should always be prepared. There's always going to be cardio. You could go for a run. You could watch your diet. If you're in that weight class, and that's a big thing with me and Marshall's, we say there's a lot of weight bullies in these weight classes. If you can't make the weight on 2 weeks' notice, then you shouldn't be in that weight class. That's just my opinion.
All right. And Aris, I'll ask you the same question, and I guess tagging on to what Brady said. Do you have the same sentiment? Do you think that, hey, if you can't make the weight within 2 weeks, you shouldn't do it? Or are you more on the side of like, these guys cut 25 pounds or whatever, that's fair game?
No, yeah, you should. I had to cut 20 pounds from football season to wrestling season in about 2 weeks. If I can do it, you can do it. And I wasn't even training that hard. But if you're getting paid to fight, yeah, you should be able to make weight. If I could do it in high school, I mean, you should be able to do it now. If not, go up 1 weight class.
I agree with you. I'm sort of in that same camp of like, hey, you should be able to do it from home. There's times where I had to jump rope with, the shower running and close the door and, put towels underneath by the door just to make it a little steam box while I could jump rope and work out. So I agree with you, Brady, that, if you've signed your name on the dotted line, it doesn't matter if the world is ending, whatever it is, you should be able to make that weight.
Yep.
All right, so let's go ahead. We're going to move on to Fight Island. So recently, Fight Island was announced. The location happens to be in Abu Dhabi. Aris, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Fight Island? Do you think Abu Dhabi is a good location? And what do you think that they can really do with Fight Island? I know it's hard right now to get a whole lot of fans there. Can they use Fight Island any other format or way besides just a place to host events during?
I do think it's going to be hard in the future to get fans there, at least American fans. I think they had a couple fights there in Dubai a couple of years ago, and the fan base was pretty decent there. The only thing that sucks is the time difference is so crazy. So you can't really have any primetime fights there if you want to have it a primetime fight here, just based off of how time zones work. But if they can keep that little bubble of the area of Yas Island, then I feel like they can have a decent little place for them to go fight. Right now, they're probably going to have to charter a flight for these guys just to get the whole fight card over there, which could pose a problem if, one of the people is asymptomatic and then they bring it onto the plane and then you're just in a canister now with coronavirus and it could wreck the whole card. So I could see that being a problem. But right now, they've had fights there before. UFC's been there. WWE's been there. It's always been a decent crowd. I just see the logistical part of it being more of a issue than anything.
And Brady, what about you? What are your thoughts? Do you think Fight Island, is it a good idea, bad idea? How do you think they're going to get all the fighters over there? What are your thoughts?
I didn't think about it till you said it now, but I do think they're going to have border issues, and I think you're going to see a lot of fighters at first get their fights canceled because of the border issues. I think it's better at the Apex. This is my opinion. They're doing it. It's there. Why would they do it?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Apex is, a fantastic facility. I still want to go on a tour one of these days when I'm out there in Vegas. I know we usually go to wrestling tournaments there in the fall. So the next time I'm out there, I want to check it out. But they've got enough space there. They've got even the training facilities. So if they want,
and it's working.
All the fighters can block out time, and just train right there.
Yeah, and it's working, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. If it's not broken, why try to fix it?
Exactly.
And you're right. You run into those issues, Aris, where it's like, hey, can I get my passport? And, can I get my visa? And then how do we get all the fighters over there? And you're right. If they're all taking the same chartered flight or whatever it is, they don't have to fly commercial. Well, if one person just has it on that flight, you guarantee everybody has it. So.
And we got 4 cards in 8 days or something coming up. I don't remember correctly, but there's got to be some canceled fights happening. Isn't Jose Aldo fighting for a title and he's in Brazil? I don't understand how that whole thing's going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Jose Aldo is supposed to be fighting. I believe it's not
Peter Yan.
Peter Yan, is it? Yeah. So I think that'll be a fantastic fight. But you're right. What are the implications of Aldo coming out of Brazil, like you were saying? Brings up a fantastic point, though. So, bridging off of the Abu Dhabi and Fight Island, the fight that's supposed to be held there first will be the Usman versus Burns card. But the other cards that we have, we've got Poirier versus Hooker.
Can't wait.
We also have Blades and Volkov. And then another fight that's just been announced, also Miocic versus Daniel Cormier, and that'll be in August. So, Brady, what of those fights are you most looking forward to?
Well, I think the Blades and Volkov is this Saturday, right?
Yep, I think you're correct.
And I have to say it's hard because right now I'm looking to the Blades and Volkov just because I had a good connection with Lauren Murphy this week. I know it sounds weird, but she was a good person. So I'm really, once you get to know a fighter, I guess, and talk to him more, you're looking forward to that fighter. So I'm really looking forward to her fight this weekend. But I'm really looking forward to the Jose Aldo versus Yan and Max Holloway versus Volkanovski too. Those are probably the 2 fights that I'm looking forward to the most. But these cards are stacked, so nothing is... that's what I mean. They stack cards like crazy, and then they give us cards that are mediocre. They need to find a balance.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I really am excited for those upcoming fights, that Alexander Volkanovski fight versus Max Holloway. The first time I thought that there was the potential for an upset, but I thought Volkanovski actually made it look pretty easy. And his fighting style is fairly basic too. I don't think he does too much. I don't think he's too explosive or too athletic. He just sticks to what he does best. And he was able to squeak out that fight.
The thing about that fight is I actually gave Volkanovski 4 of the 1 rounds, and people were making it look like it was close, and it really, really wasn't at all. I don't know how you guys feel about that fight, but I just don't think it's rematch worthy, but I think it's going to be the same outcome. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if Max Holloway cut too much weight or what it was, but I didn't think at any point Volkanovski was ever in trouble. I thought he controlled it the entire time. I never thought at any moment in the fight Max Holloway might pull it off. I thought Holloway was fighting back, but you're right. I did not think that at any point was he ever going to win that fight. Aris, I'll flip it to you. So again, some of the fights that we have coming up: Blades versus Volkov, Poirier versus Hooker, Usman versus Burns, and then we also have Miocic versus Cormier. And those are just the main events. We also have, Jose Aldo versus Jan, and then like we were just talking about, Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway rematching each other. Are there any fights really standing out to you, or are you excited to watch any of those?
Stipe Cormier fight, because he, in a recent interview with Dan Le Batard, he did say, he kind of alluded to him winding down. So it could possibly be his last fight ever. He's already started to commentate on some of these fights and help Greg Hardy win from, his commentary about the fight. So that's one fight I'm really looking forward to. It could possibly be one of the best fighters we've ever seen, be his last fight. If he does win, maybe he has one more title defense in him. If he does lose, he's probably done. But being from Albuquerque, one fight that I'm kind of excited for, because Albuquerque always shuts down when she fights, is Holly Holm. I believe she's going to be on the Stipe card with Cormier. I believe it's going to be on that card. So, it's always fun to watch her fight, though I feel like it's probably past her prime. Hopefully she gets the win just so we can have that 505 pride, but it is what it is at this point in her career. So
yeah, shout out to Holly Holm. She also went to our old high school, right? So she's an alum of our old high school, so we always cheer for her. But I do think that you're right, Aris, in that maybe a little bit past her fighting prime. She struck lightning right when she beat Ronda Rousey, and we even have a Holly Holm Day here in Albuquerque. She's never quite been up to that same level, and I think it really was a stylistic matchup. So you're exactly right.
On those 4 cards, there's a fight that I'm looking forward to actually the most that I didn't even think about. And he is my favorite fighter. Just so you know, my favorite fighter is Frankie Edgar, and I think from Albuquerque, Carlos Condit. Those are my 2 favorite guys. But Frankie Edgar will be making his bantamweight debut against Pedro Munoz, and that is probably the fight I'm looking forward to the most, coming to think about it. I'm really looking forward to him making his bantamweight debut. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point is, Frankie Edgar, he was a guy that won the 155 belt without ever having to cut a whole lot of weight.
Yeah.
And, now he's been able to make weight at 45, and, he's going down to 35. So he may pack a whole lot of power behind him as long as he can cut that weight effectively, right, and still have the energy that he always has. That is a good one. Another interesting fight that got mentioned was Zabit Magomedsharipov versus Yair Rodriguez. So, Brady, do you have any
Say those 10 times fast for me real quick.
Not going to happen.
You know what? I really wish that Cater versus Zabit fight was 5 rounds. Ever since that fight, it kind of upsets me. If it's a 5-round fight, I'm really favoring Yair. Is it 5 rounds, or is this a main event?
I want to say that it's not a main event, but I may be wrong, right? They're having a lot of these smaller cards.
Yeah.
So they might.
That would be a good 5-round. He needs to test a 5-round fight. That's my opinion. If it's 3 rounds, the Beat's going to win. If it's 5 rounds, it'll be decision area. That's just he has cardio issues. He's a great fighter. He just has that cardio issues, and we need to see it kind of not exposed, but we need to see what he can work with after that 4th round before giving him that title shot.
Aris, do you have any thoughts on that fight? I know, they're both up and coming. They're not necessarily the biggest names, though I would argue that they're pretty popular at the moment. Do you have any thoughts on Zabit versus Yair Rodriguez?
I'm a borderline fan, so I've never heard of blah, 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 and blah, 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 blah.
No, that's okay. I think you will here pretty soon, though. I really do think Zabit, one of these days, will be challenging for the title. And Yair is also
for sure.
Electric. And speaking of Zabit, he's probably got to shave his head. So this is the perfect time when we're going to talk about male grooming. Shout out to our sponsor, Manscaped. If you haven't already, use our promo code SLUMP, SLUMP. And here's a word from our sponsor.
This is a message brought to you by the Foundation for a Perfect Package.
Why do I need Manscaped?
Why do I need Manscaped?
Why do I need Manscaped?
Because the only frill I want is the one up top.
Because being in a relationship is not an excuse to be lazy.
Because I like talking ball, not smelling like them.
Because deforestation is proven to prevent forest fires.
Manscaped is the only brand dedicated to below-the-waist grooming.
Manscaped's Crop Preserver guarantees that you smell your best all day long.
Manscaped Boxer Briefs are the most comfortable underwear on the market.
Manscaped's advanced skincare technology makes nicks a thing of the past.
Manscaped is the #1 in men's grooming. Subscribers get 2 free blade refills every 3 months. Get 20% off plus free shipping and handling with the promo code SLUMP at manscaped.com. That's the promo code SLUMP at manscaped.com. Get your lawnmower 3.0 today.
We are the Slumpbusters.
And we approve this message. Transitioning back into our talk, something that's been really interesting has been a lot of contract talks recently. So Jorge Masvidal has been one of the guys saying, hey, I need to get paid more. John Jones has come out saying, I want to do these big fights. I want to move up to heavyweight, but you got to pay me to do it. And then even Amanda Nunes has come out. Hers isn't so much contract-based, but she's thinking about retirement. Brady, I'll start with you. What do you think about all of these contract talks? Do you think the fighters deserve to get paid more? And what do you think sort of the future is for the UFC?
You know what? You look at it as it's different because John Jones came out and said, I want Deontay Wilder money. The UFC isn't paying enough for their fighters. Most people can agree on that. Does he deserve Deontay Wilder money? To me, John Jones is the greatest fighter of all time, but it's a company where a lot of boxing is promoting. It's different business standpoints because the fighters on the lower card most times of boxing are getting pennies, where the main fighter is getting the chunk of the paycheck. Should John Jones be paid more? Yes. Will it happen? No, because he's stuck in a contract. And when you're stuck in a contract, there's not really much you can do because he signed the dotted line. And that being said, John Jones did sign that contract just a year ago. So I don't know if this is just it's like a scheme he's pulling because it was a year ago. So I really don't know what to think about it.
Yeah, Aris, what are your thoughts?
So I feel like they should get more. The UFC is the only one of the major sports that doesn't have public numbers. We don't really know what people are getting paid contract-wise, whereas we do for NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, where they even have these big announcements like, hey, Kirk Cousins is getting paid $88 million over 4 years. They don't do that with the UFC. And I know there's been like 2 or 3 guys that have come public with their money. So until we know like how much they're getting paid for these fights, we're really not going to be able to, have conversations if they're paid well enough, paid, overpaid, underpaid, correctly paid for, the slot they're in. And one of the ways they could do that is, we were talking about this earlier, is if they have a union, but there's always going to be somebody willing to fight. So I don't think the fighters are going to be able to strike long enough to actually gain a union to where we can see the public numbers to see if they're paid well or not paid well. But I feel like they can all get their money. Masvidal is getting paid or getting offered half of what he was paid for the BMF belt for the actual title belt. So I feel like that's one issue where, hey, this VS belt over here is worth a lot more to us than an actual belt. Until we can fix those problems, then we could probably get into, hey, let's actually pay these guys the right amount. So it's a long way to go. Fortunately, I don't think they're ever going to get there.
Yeah, Aris, you bring up some really good points about the transparency of other sports versus the UFC because, after the fights, we do get sometimes, hey, here's what Reebok paid out in sponsorships, and then here's some of like what people got paid on the card. So, one, what were you paid by the UFC? Did you get a knockout bonus or whatever? But we really don't see the pay-per-view numbers. And I do find it interesting that between fights, Brady pointed out like, hey, you signed a contract, but it seems like it can fluctuate. And, you pointed out the point of Jorge Masvidal, whereas like how, if he really signed a contract, how is he getting double in his previous fight what he would be getting this fight, and the inconsistency there. And so I don't know if it's clauses within the contracts. Sometimes, hey, if this is just a really, really big fight, we'll up it for you. Maybe Jorge Masvidal had like a title clause, for instance, in his contract. But it would really be interesting if we were able to add some of that transparency. It may help, fighters and their agents do more bargaining by saying like, hey, look, I think my guy is way better than, guy A, B, C over here. So Brady, do you think that there is a way to add more transparency, or do you think that it's just like, hey, that's just the nature of these individual combat sports?
All right. First of all, when Jorge Masvidal fought Nate Diaz, he never main evented a pay-per-view before. So from there, he got paid for pay-per-view points because the pay-per-view was Masvidal versus Diaz, which is it was a huge success. I don't think it was more the belt. I think he just got the pay-per-view points and he made killing off it, which he didn't get. And let's be honest, he hasn't fought since that fight, I don't think. But that's the reason why he got paid more, is that he was fighting Nate Diaz in the pay-per-view of a main event. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think, the main event draw and the buzz around it, this was the first time that there had ever been an MF belt. And if we're really being honest, right, Masvidal, yeah, he's maybe championship material, but really he had sort of been one of those fighters that had like a cult following, grew up fighting in, Kimbo Slice's backyard brawls. And without a doubt, he's definitely become a really good fighter. But you're exactly right in that he never really had that draw before this fight. And now all of that, he's one of the superstars. You know, what else is interesting is we're also coming up, if we haven't already passed it, pretty much I think the 4 or 5 year anniversary or whatever it is of the Reebok deal itself. So I see that you're wearing a Reebok shirt, a Showtime Pettis shirt at that. Do you think that the UFC renews that Reebok deal?
Honestly, I was just talking to Jim Miller on the interview today about this, and it is coming to an end. I know the CrossFit finally ended the contract with that, so they're back to regular Reebok now. I do think they'll sign again, because at first they looked like Power Rangers and it was kind of all over the place. They didn't know what to do with it. And I think they finally just came up with a rhythm where it works. I think it will stick and they'll sign at least another 5-year contract with Reebok.
All right. And Aris, what about you? Do you think the Reebok deal, do you think it sticks? Do you think they go maybe back to an old system, a different system, different brand? What are your thoughts on the Reebok deal expiring?
Well, with the current climate, I'm not too sure. It just depends on Reebok's stance with the CrossFit side, because I know there's a lot of controversy now with the CrossFit creator and some comments he's made in the past. So if they go down that route, I'm not sure, how muddied the waters would be for them. I hope they go away from that, because I liked seeing the different sponsors. Sure. I liked seeing the different colors and not just like 3 basic colors for the fighters. I did like the unity of it. Like stylistically, they looked like an actual sport, not just random people fighting. But I personally liked I forget who it was, but across his ass, it said condoms.com. And I just thought that was the funniest thing ever. So it's like, I wish they would get back to that. Now the fighters are losing money because they can't be sponsored for their fights and actually get paid for wearing condoms across your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm exactly on board with you, Aris. And I think I'm going to say like a mix of the two. I think Brady's exactly right. I don't see very many other options besides Reebok, right? Like I don't think Nike and Adidas want really any part of the UFC. Like their main thing is shoes, and you don't wear shoes in a fight. And then other brands that like I would love for them to partner with, maybe like a Hayabusa or, Combat Corner or one of those MMA brands. But I just think that those brands don't have enough bandwidth and ability to service the UFC. So really the only brand that can meet the demands of the UFC and mass-produce product that the UFC requires probably is Reebok. But I would like for them to maybe allow for sponsorships, like individual sponsorships that maybe don't compete with Reebok, right? So no, you can't be sponsored by Hayabusa or some of these other fighting brands. Maybe you can be sponsored by a condom depot, right? As you were saying, Aris. I don't know if the UFC would allow that, but some of the other brands, right? If you're sponsored by a supplement, like a supplement company, or something like that, I think would be really interesting. All right. Well, with that, talking about money, one guy that has made a ton of money is Conor McGregor. And Conor McGregor recently announced his retirement. So, Aris, we'll actually start with you this time. Do you think Conor McGregor is really retired?
No, he's not retired. This was the only card he was able to play at this point. He wanted Khabib, Tony Ferguson, he wanted Justin Gaethje, but Dana doesn't want that fight just yet. He wants Khabib to fight. Conor wanted to fight, I think he said, 3 times this year? Now it's looking like he's probably not even going to fight at all this year, because the Khabib fight's probably going to be, around September, October time. And I don't know how quick they can turn him over, if he's able to fight by December, if not January. So at this point, it was his only card to play to try to get a fight. So he's coming back. This is just what he had to do in order to kind of strong arm the UFC into getting him a fight.
And if he comes back, Aris, who would you like to see him fight?
At this point, I'm not too sure. I would love to see Nate Diaz fight again. I know he's talked about wanting to fight Masvidal. That could be a big draw, and that might be able to satisfy Masvidal's contract dispute, and then maybe give Masvidal the title fight after that. I don't really care who he fights, and at this point, it's whatever.
All right. Brady, what are your thoughts? Do you think Conor stays retired? Do you think he's coming back?
Oh, he's definitely back. How many times has he retired? I think this is the third time in the last 2 years. It's turning into a trend. Yeah, I would like to see him fight Nate Diaz 3. It needs to happen. I think he would beat Nate Diaz rather easily this time at welterweight, since he's came to his own in that division, and then go and fight Khabib. Probably lose that fight and retire then.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think the Nate Diaz fight would be a little bit more Conor's style anyways, right? It's a little bit more stand up and bang. And whereas Khabib, I think Khabib beats him almost 10 out of 10 times, maybe 9.5, I'll say.
But that being said, I do think that, honestly, that Justin Gaethje will be beating Khabib. I just have a feeling, and I picked Gaethje to beat Ferguson, so I think that Gaethje's going to leg kick him, and his wrestling is high notch. I do think you're going to see a Conor versus Gaethje before a Khabib versus Conor again.
All right, that's really interesting. Who do you think wins that fight? Do you think Gaethje wins that, or do you think Conor McGregor does?
It depends. Honestly, with those guys hitting, it can go either way. But I would have to say, I would lean towards Conor because he's just a crisper striker than Khabib, Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, and he's really long. Those body kicks that he has can take the wind out of you.
It's really weird, that lightweight division, because you kind of have, Conor would beat everyone but Khabib, in my opinion, where this person could beat that person, this person, you know what I mean? It's all over the place. Styles make fights.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think, going back to Holly Holm, who we mentioned earlier in the show, that was sort of what happened with the Ronda Rousey and Miesha Tate triangle. Is I think every single time Holly Holm beats Ronda Rousey, and every single time Ronda Rousey beats Miesha Tate, and then pretty much every single time I think Miesha Tate finds a way to beat Holly Holm just based off the wrestling ability.
And let's throw in every time Amanda Nunes beats all three of them.
I do agree with that. Yep, I do agree with that. So, Aris, going back to you. So that's a really interesting fight. Gaethje versus Conor. Who do you think wins that fight?
I'm going to roll with Gaethje. He's been in there. I'll still say he has a puncher's chance because he's hella good. I mean, one punch Jose Aldo. So, I mean, he still has a chance, but I would go Gaethje in that point.
All right. So, Brady, I've got to put you on the spot. Since you picked Conor, you thought his striking was a little bit more crisp than Gaethje, correct?
Yes.
How much money would you be willing to put on that fight?
Probably 500.
500? You're confident enough to put $500 on that?
I would do this just for your show, and everyone's going to make fun of me. A hidden secret is I got a Conor McGregor tattoo.
Oh, do you really?
I do. It's right there. So if he loses, I'll get it removed. How about that?
Oh, man. Okay, that's definitely a good bet. Well, that brings us to our next sponsor. So thank you to Razor Sports for sponsoring the show. If you haven't heard about Razor Sports, they definitely help you when it comes to betting. Razor is a worldwide sports betting network. They have access to the latest and sharpest sports betting information. They have a mixture of sports betting bots and crews of handicappers who are used to produce their plays. They show the player how a real professional sports bettor plays and wins. It's easy, and all you have to do is sign up for the free trial. Send a text with the game. Razor will tell you exactly what to bet. So let's say the Jets -3, or how to bet. Take the over 45. However, they'll never tell you how much money to bet, right? Or should you offer getting your tattoo removed? That's totally up to you as the bettor. No pressure, but Razor definitely offers tools to help you with your betting. They are 100% legitimate, and it is a free trial. It's definitely worth the try. So Razor, thank you for sponsoring the show. We really appreciate it. And for our listeners, please do go check out Razor. They can help make you into a betting professional, or at least close to it. Brady, we won't hold you to it, but we will have to watch that show together then, or that fight, I should say. If Gaethje and Conor ever fight each other, we'll definitely have to, maybe Zoom call while we're watching it or something.
And trust me, I get all the heat. Trust me, even on my podcast from people being like, oh my gosh, you're the biggest fanboy, all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I was just Irish and I was a little, And I decided, hey, I'll just throw it on there. And it was just supposed to be a clover, but we'll just say that.
Went from a clover to Conor McGregor.
Pretty much.
So since you've got Gaethje in that fight, what would you be willing to wager that you think Gaethje wins?
Not a dang thing, because I'm broke. I have 2 project vehicles. I have 3 dogs. I don't have money to bet.
What if you put forward one of the dogs?
No, I love my dogs too much.
All right.
I'll put forward the current headache car. It's worth about $3,000 just to get it away from me.
I think that's fair. Tattoo removal or a car. So
a car that's annoying as heck right now.
Yeah, I will say, Aris, I actually do agree with you. I am a little bit afraid of Conor McGregor's power and his striking, how crisp he is. But I think at the end of the day, Gaethje has more options available. And it's interesting, we never really see him use his wrestling ability. He usually just stands up and bangs. But he's an all-American wrestler. Like, he knows how to wrestle. He knows how to grapple. And I think we might see a little bit of that when he's fighting Conor. So in that fight, I would take Gaethje over McGregor. What I would be willing to bet on that fight is, I'll bet my girlfriend's car. I don't want to bet my car, but
Where's Sarah? Where's Sarah? I need to ask her if she's okay with that.
She's downstairs, so we'll ask her after the show. No, that'll be a fun one though. We'll all have to get together to watch that. So moving on into our last few topics, so we can start wrapping up this show. There's also been some boxing talk. So I know we've been talking mostly MMA, but transitioning to the world of boxing, Anthony Joshua announced 2 fights with Tyson Fury here in 2021. So I imagine that no matter what, whoever wins or loses, they'll run it back. But first, we're going to get Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury 3, which is being talked about for December. So Brady, what are your thoughts? I think what is the most exciting fight out of those 2, Wilder versus Fury again, or Joshua versus Fury for you? And then who do you think wins that Wilder and Fury rematch?
So I think this is a good thing. It's kind of I don't like when they have contracts or they start making fights and talking about, I don't like how Tyson Fury is talking about Joshua already. He needs to know that Wilder is still dangerous, and that doesn't look good going into a 3rd fight. I mean, I do have Fury winning, but Wilder is still dangerous and might make those changes because he's having a little bit longer of a time to make those changes now. So I still do think Fury wins, and I think Fury wins 1 of 1. I think it would go to a trilogy with Joshua, honestly, but I don't think he should be overlooking Wilder in the first fight.
Yeah, that's a really interesting take, and I agree with you. Aris, we'll flip it back to you. One, what's the most exciting out of those fights for you? Are you excited to see Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury, or do you want to see that rematch?
The Wilder Fury fight would be fun if he doesn't walk out with 50 pounds of crap on his body. But I feel like, kind of a weird draw the first fight, domination the second fight. Really going to be any different in the 3rd fight. But the Joshua fight, I feel like, is going to be the better of the 2 options just because it's something new. We kind of already seen what happened with Wilder and Fury. Now we get to see something different. We get to see how Fury stacks up against other fighters. But I do think it would go 1-1, and then the 3rd one probably Fury as well for the trilogy on that 2nd fight.
No, I think you guys are exactly right. I think Fury wins it again. What I will say is Wilder actually hasn't been boxing for all that long, and we know he's a natural. We know he's got otherworldly powers. So can he make those adjustments to catch up to Fury from a technical standpoint? We'll see. He's got, pretty good reach and can possibly keep Fury at bay, but Fury's just so big. and so technical. I still see Fury winning this fight, the trilogy. And then you're right, the Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury fight, though, that really is like two true boxers going at it at heavyweight, something we haven't seen before. So I agree. I think I'm most excited for the Anthony Joshua Tyson Fury fight in 2021. So hopefully we all make it there and COVID doesn't kill all of us or something worse, you know. All right, we're gonna start wrapping up. So Brady, any other thoughts on boxing or MMA, some of the upcoming fights or anything like that?
Yeah, I just want to throw out there, what do you guys think about Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia if that fight happens?
Oh man, Garcia is so like quick with his hands and so much power. I just love Garcia's style, so I'm gonna go with Garcia.
Really? I think that Spence is honestly my favorite boxer right now, and I think he destroys him, but I can't wait to see how he looks coming out of that big accident. So that's really what I'm looking forward to see how his health is.
Yeah, that is one thing that I'm wondering and looking at is, you know, how quickly can you recover, right? And we've seen people recover from accidents before, but yeah, that's why I'm gonna give it. I think it's more just my love for Garcia and his style, and I just like watching the kid fight. But
you are the first person I talked to that is giving Garcia a chance, thinking he's actually gonna win.
Yeah, like I said, that may just be my ignorance and and my favoritism. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Garcia. Aris, you got any thoughts?
My thoughts on boxing is I've watched 2 boxing matches in my life. The Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather fight, and then the Wilder Fury 2 fight. So whoever's the favorite, I guess. Boxing's always been kind of a blind spot for me because growing up, my family never really watched boxing. So now I'm starting to get into the sport kind of slowly. So, I mean, I'll probably just watch pay-per-views at this point just because, you know, that's the extent of my knowledge on boxing.
It'll be a pay-per-view for sure.
Yeah, you're just so ignorant, Aris. So
okay, looky here. My dad was a kickboxer, so we watched MMA and not boxing. I'm so sorry. Blame my dad. It is his birthday today, so blame him on his birthday. Aundre, go ahead.
No, I do think that MMA is sort of taken over the world. Boxing, a lot of people call it a dying sport. I wouldn't exactly say that. I do think boxing is a lot more technical, and you have to really know what you're looking for when it comes to the striking and head movement and countering and stuff. Whereas MMA is sort of more just like closer to a street fight that people enjoy, right? Like you just, the moment you hear fight in the lunchroom, everybody runs over there to see what happens. And that's more of an MMA fight. Not saying MMA is not technical, but I think boxing, you do have to have a love for the crisp and cleanness of the striking. So Brady, we originally were going to talk about the Bruce Lee documentary, Be Water, but since you haven't seen it, I know you've been busy with family and stuff. I'm going to ask you about your shirt. Showtime Pettis. Is Pettis your favorite fighter, or who would you say is your favorite fighter right now?
He's a top 5. My top 5 would have to be, of all time, would be Frankie, Carlos Condit, Stipe Miocic, Pettis, and it's getting up there. Those are my guys. I can't even think of a 5th one right now. But Pettis is definitely one of my favorite fighters. I've always looked up to him ever since WEC days. I do rock a lot of Reebok shirts. Like I just got my Daniel Cormier one in there. I think they're amazing products. So I hope they sign again with UFC.
Okay, right on. Aris, what about you? Who are your favorite fighters that you've got to watch throughout the years?
So I really like John Jones just because it's such a wild style to watch. You were kind of always on the edge of your seat to see what he was going to do. And then Holly Holm is probably my favorite fighter just because I have actually met her. She worked out at the gym that was right next door to the Domino's I worked at in college. And she threatened to beat me up one day because I took over the pizza to the front desk lady while Holly was fighting or training for a fight. And she said if I didn't leave with that pizza, she'd kick my ass. So Holly's my favorite because she's the only one that's ever actually said she's going to kick my ass. But other than that, I mean, I really liked Tito Ortiz and Ken Shamrock growing up. Kind of those older school fighters, but then Holly and John Jones definitely are going to be up there for me.
Yeah, I feel like if you're from Albuquerque or New Mexico in general, right, like you've got to have John Jones and Holly Holm in your top 2. I think for me, as much as you guys know that I hate on John Jones, right, because I hate his antics outside of the UFC, right, or, you know, whether it's steroids or cocaine and hitting pregnant ladies.
Dick pills.
dick pills, right? Quote unquote.
Didn't he smack a stripper as well?
Yeah, he choked a stripper. It was even worse. As much as I hate his antics, I've got to say, growing up, like the first fight that I ever saw was his fight right before the Matt Hamill fight that he got DQ'd. I forget which one it was, but I knew right away. I was like, oh yeah, that dude's a future champ. So I've got to say John Jones is up there. Old Anderson Silva, of course, is always fun to watch. Like just his smoothness and fluidity on the feet. George St. Pierre was another monster. And then I really like Demetrius Johnson as well. So I would say those are probably my top four. And then I'd have to think. I really like Khabib Nurmagomedov as well. I like.
Oh, boo!
No, I love Khabib. He just sticks to his style, and you know he's a wrestler. I was a wrestler, and he doesn't care what anybody says. He's like, hey, I'm gonna do my thing, take you down. So.
Well, here's my fifth one that I couldn't think of. Dan Henderson.
Oh, Henderson, yeah. He was always fun to watch. The H-bombs. Second to last question, but this is a question that we always ask all of our all of our guests: is what is your favorite sports movie of all time?
Ooh, sports movie, so it could be anything.
It could be anything, so it doesn't have to be combat sports related. But if that is your favorite, feel free to shoot it out there.
You know what? I really enjoyed Invincible with Mark Wahlberg. I think that's a great movie. But right now, it got beaten out by The Way Back. I don't know if you've heard of it with Ben Affleck.
No, I haven't heard of it. Aris, have you?
Yeah, it's pretty much his life story, but he's playing a basketball coach.
Yeah, so it was really good. Honestly, I don't watch too many sports movies in general, but that one really hit the heart, man. There's that, and also maybe, I'd have to say that for sure. The Way Back is definitely taking my number one spot. It was an amazing movie, not because it's new. It was just honestly amazing.
Really, I'll definitely have to check it out now, especially now with the coronavirus. If they have it on Netflix or whatever it is, or some way that I could buy it, I'll definitely check it out. All right, to wrap this up, our final question of the evening, Brady, where can we find the Combat Hour? What are all the things you have coming up? Tell us where the fans can find you.
All right, guys, I do interviews. So yesterday I had Lauren Murphy, and today I had Jim Miller interviews that came out and released. So check those guys out. You can follow us on Instagram at The Combat Hour and follow us on there. I am also on Twitter at The Combat Hour. Our main videos are on YouTube, so just type in The Combat Hour, hit subscribe, like, and comment on our videos whenever you can possible.
Awesome. Aris, before we sign off, anything you want to say?
Yeah, look for that first mock draft coming out that we kind of teased in the last podcast last time I was on here. So look for the mock draft. It should be coming out this week. And then you can go and vote on which team you think will be the best. And we'll just keep coming out with those every other week for new mock drafts for you guys for fantasy.
Awesome. Well, that's going to wrap things up for us. Thank you again to all of our listeners, all of our fans for interacting with us. Of course, you can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast, but we're on Instagram, YouTube. Find us on Facebook. Feel free to shoot us a message, interact with us in any way possible. Episode 54, thank you again for listening. Please do check out Manscaped and Razor. Do love our sponsors. Definitely help us promote the show. They help us keep going. So thank you to all of our sponsors. And again, thank you fans for listening. And thank you to the Combat Hour for coming on. We hope you guys have a great day, a great week. Catch you later.